During my year studying in Mexico, my friend and I took advantage of the semester breaks to explore the country through backpacking trips. As our exchange program neared its end, we decided to fly back home from a nearby city, known for its budget-friendly flights, even though the city itself lacked tourist attractions. Through Eerie, we found accommodation with a seemingly friendly family. The husband was Mexican, while the wife hailed from Europe and could speak our native language. They kindly offered to pick us up from the airport when we arrived. Unfortunately, our arrival took place after dark, and the bus driver refused to take us all the way to the airport, leaving us stranded on a desolate highway in an unfamiliar and not so safe part of Mexico. We contacted our hosts, and the husband reluctantly picked us up, making for an awkward and tense ride. Upon arriving at their residence, we were welcomed by the wife, who was talkative and hospitable. While the husband remained silent throughout the evening, we had a pleasant dinner and decided to explore the town the following day before our flight. After returning to the house, we thought it would be nice to smoke some leftover weed on our last night. However, as the hosts had children, we asked their permission to do so on the terrace. Surprisingly, they not only granted permission, but seemed excessively interested in the weed, even mentioning their thoughts about selling it in the past. To our shock, the husband disclosed that he had been involved with the cartel as a contract killer in his teenage years. We were taken aback by this revelation, but decided to stay calm, hoping we would be safe since we were his guests. I'm currently on a cross-country road trip in my car, which has been ongoing for over a week since I left my city. To save money, I've been sleeping in my car, but once I reached a larger city, I decided to treat myself to a comfortable bed. I chose Eerie as my accommodation option because it's more affordable than hotels. With little time to spare, I booked an Airbnb in the city was about to reach. However, due to the limited options, I ended up choosing a seemingly new and modern apartment in a great location. Though it had no reviews yet, despite this, I thought the low price was due to it being a new listing and gave it a chance, trusting in Airbnb's legitimacy. Upon arriving at the apartment building, I noticed it looked older than expected. Nevertheless, I assumed that my rented apartment was the only renovated one, as the rest of the building appeared run down like a dormitory. I let it slide, content that at least the apartment itself matched the pictures. The first 2 days in the apartment went smoothly, and I took all necessary safety precautions since I was a solo female traveler. However, on the 3rd day, while I was getting ready to head out, someone unexpectedly unlocked the door and tried to open it. Thankfully, I had put the chain lock on, preventing them from fully opening it. I immediately closed the door and locked it again. I was terrified, realizing that someone had keys to the apartment and could potentially enter at any time. I couldn't determine who it was, as I didn't see the person through the door's peephole. Distressed, I called the owner and explained the situation. She assured me that only she and I had keys to the apartment, and she was at work when it happened. Feeling unsafe, I didn't want to stay there, but I also didn't want to leave my belongings unattended. After discussing it with my dad, he advised me that this situation was unacceptable and the owner needed to address it immediately. The owner promised to come with a locksmith to change the locks and provide me with a new set of keys. She mentioned that she had only owned the apartment for 6 months and had been renovating it, which explained the mismatch between the apartment and the building's appearance. She speculated that the previous owners or someone related to them might have the keys, which seemed illegal. This experience left me shaken, and I couldn't help but wonder how someone knew I was there at that specific time. The uncertainty and fear haunted my mind, and I was incredibly grateful that I had put the chain lock on the door. The incident made me realize the importance of reviews and safety measures when choosing accommodations. Needless to say, I won't be leaving a positive review for this Airbnb, nor will I stay in any place with no reviews or one that seems too good to be true. At the age of 25, I made the most significant decision of my life: to move across the country and attend grad school. Life on the East Coast hadn't been treating me well since I finished my undergraduate studies. I was stuck into dead-end jobs, trapped in a toxic relationship, and battling a general feeling of depression. Despite having had an amazing time during my college years. In preparation for my departure, I meticulously planned the trip weeks in advance. I chose a route through the middle of the country, passing through states like Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas, and New Mexico. With no strict deadline to arrive at my destination, I decided to drive for 10 to 15 hours per day and find affordable accommodations on the way. Preferring Airbnb rentals for their homely feel over expensive hotels. The first day of driving was the longest, lasting 14 hours until I reached Nashville. After checking into my Airbnb rental, I enjoyed some barbecue and drifted off while watching TV. The next morning, I hit the road again, exhilarated by the liberating feeling of driving cross-country. However, after about 12 hours on the road, fatigue started setting in, and I began to feel the stress of driving for so long. I stopped for coffee and to book my next stay, eventually finding a cheap cabin for $60 a night called Bob's Mountain Getaway. The cabin seemed simple but safe, and I was relieved to have found an affordable option. But as I read through the description, something felt off. The poster's enthusiasm to make it sound like a resort raised my suspicion. My mind wandered to stories of people getting murdered in remote cabins, and I decided to play it safe and head to Oklahoma City for a more secure place to stay. The rest of my trip went smoothly, and I marveled at the scenic landscapes of the Western Mountains. 2 years later, I had successfully completed grad school, secured a good job, and found myself in a healthy relationship. Listening to a true crime podcast called The Last Podcast on the Left, I came across a segment about strange happenings. They discussed a news story titled The Eunuch Makers, where two men had rented a cabin on an LGBTQ app similar to Airbnb, posing as surgeons offering gender reassignment surgeries. The horrifying story involved botched surgeries and gruesome practices with body parts. Intrigued, I googled the story and came across a picture of the cabin. It looked eerily familiar, and I realized it was the same cabin I had seen on Airbnb 2 years ago. I had even taken a screenshot of it due to its creepy appearance. The realization that such horrifying events had taken place in the very same place where I almost stayed sent chills down my spine. While it's unlikely any harm would have befallen me, knowing what had happened there made me thankful for prioritizing my safety and spending a bit more to stay in a secure location.